The first scream comes from the servers. Crimson floods the screens. Skull icons multiply like a disease as alarms tear through the penthouse command floor. Outside, rain slams against bulletproof glass 80 floors above Seattle. $10 billion evaporates in seconds. Armed men freeze mid-step. Analysts forget how to breathe. At the center of it all stands Min Jun. The Korean Mafia boss doesn't shout. He doesn't curse. He simply watches his empire die in silence. And that silence is more terrifying than gunfire. Then the elevator dings. A soaked black delivery girl steps out onto the marble floor. Her yellow jacket drips rainwater. Imani Carter grips a bag of spicy noodles, shoulders tight, eyes lowered, invisible, replaceable. Late again, her phone vibrates in her pocket with one reminder she cannot escape. Her brother's execution date. Guns rise instantly, but Imani looks up at the screens. She frowns. Softly, almost distracted, she says, "That's not an attack. That's a suicide protocol." The room stops breathing. Min Jun turns for the first time. His gaze cuts into her like a blade. "Say that again." Imani swallows. "Your system is killing itself. And I know why." In that moment, the Empire hesitates, and destiny walks straight into hell. Subscribe to Love and Loyalties before the truth changes everything. Imani does not get a chance to step back into the elevator. The moment Min Jun lifts one finger, the doors slide shut behind her with a soft, final sound. Two armed men flank her instantly. Another takes the noodles from her hands and drops them into the trash without looking. The smell of chili oil lingers in the air, absurd and out of place against gunmetal and panic. "Search her," someone orders. Imani stiffens as hands pat her down, checking pockets, seams, shoes. Her phone is taken. Her backpack is emptied onto a glass table. Old receipts, a cracked tablet, a flash drive taped inside the lining. That makes Min Jun's eyes narrow. "Bring her forward," he says calmly. She is pushed toward the central console where the screens continue to bleed red. Timers tick down. Accounts lock. Syndicate assets vanish in real time. This is not just money. This is power, leverage, fear, and it is all slipping through his fingers. Imani forces herself to breathe. "You have 6 minutes," Min Jun says. "Then I shoot you and we continue dying without you." She looks at him for the first time fully. He is worse up close, not loud, not frantic. His stillness presses on her chest like weight. This is a man who does not make threats unless he has already decided to follow through. "Auntie, my hands," she says quietly. A few men laugh. One raises his gun higher. Min Jun tilts his head. "Explain why I shouldn't kill you now." "Because this isn't malware," Imani replies. "It's recursion. Your system is rejecting foreign commands because the core architecture recognizes a violation." "English," he says. She meets his gaze. "Your empire is eating itself because the code thinks it's been stolen." The room goes silent again. Min Jun gestures once. Her restraints are loosened, not removed. A calculated mercy. Imani steps closer to the console. Her fingers hover over the keyboard, and hesitate. For a split second, memory crashes into her. Late nights, coffee rings, a chalkboard full of equations. Her professor's voice praising her brilliance right before taking it. Tick. Someone whispers. She starts typing. The room watches as lines of code flood the screen. Not frantic. Precise. Almost gentle. Her hands move with muscle memory she never lost. Firewalls reconfigure. Processes reroute. Timers slow. A murmur ripples through the analysts. Stabilization at 40%. 50. Min Jun steps closer. He watches her hands, not the screens. "This structure," he says slowly. "It's proprietary." Imani swallows. It was. She isolates the virus and projects it onto a separate display. The room leans in. "It's a mirror," she explains. "A corrupted reflection of my original architecture. Someone fed my own work back into the system, altered just enough to trigger a self-destruct." Min Jun's jaw tightens. "You built this?" "Yes." Not pride, not apology, just truth. "Why does the system respond to you?" he asks. Imani hesitates, then reaches into her memory and pulls up a command she wrote years ago, never meant to be used again. She enters it. The screens flicker. The skull icons vanish. A single line appears instead of Pramar Siraran and Nirzadi. The room erupts. Min Jun does not. He looks at Imani the way one weapon looks at another. Who stole it? He asks. She laughs once, sharp and bitter. Everyone. The system stabilizes at 90%. The bleeding slows. The Empire breathes again. Barely. Imani's knees buckle. Exhaustion crashes into her all at once. She grips the console to stay upright. Strong hands catch her before she falls. Min Jun. For a second, she forgets where she is. The warmth of his grip is shocking. Controlled. Careful. Possessive. He releases her immediately. Bring the file. He orders. A screen lights up with her life. Her name. Her academic records. The blacklisting. The lawsuits she couldn't afford. The brother arrested on charges too big for someone so small. Her stomach drops. Min Jun studies the execution date on the screen. Then he looks at her. That is your leverage, he says calmly. Imani's voice shakes for the first time. He's innocent. That is irrelevant. The words land like a blade. She straightens anyway. I fixed your system. You paused its death. Min Jun corrects. It will happen again. Whoever did this will try again, and only you can stop it. I'm not working for you, she says. I did this under threat. He nods, as if she has said something reasonable. Then he delivers the verdict. You will stay, Min Jun says. You will rebuild what was stolen from you. Here. For me. And if I refuse. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't smile. He simply turns the screen toward her again, highlighting her brother's name. You stay, Min Jun says softly, or he dies. The room holds its breath. Imani feels the cage snap shut around her, not made of steel, but of necessity. She looks at the code, at the man, at the impossible choice, and she realizes the most dangerous thing of all, she just became indispensable. Imani wakes up in silence so complete it feels artificial. For one terrifying second, she thinks she has gone deaf. Then she opens her eyes. Silk sheets. A ceiling higher than any apartment she has ever lived in. Floor to ceiling windows wrapped in rainlight. No bars. No locks. Just space. Too much of it. Luxury as a warning. She sits up sharply. Her clothes are gone. Replaced with a soft black set folded neatly at the foot of the bed. Her phone is missing. Her tablet. The flash drive. Everything that ever made her feel anchored to herself. A soft knock follows. The door opens without waiting for permission. Min Jun steps inside. He looks different here. No flashing screens. No screaming men. Just a tailored shirt, sleeves rolled back. His presence filling the room without effort. He surveys her awake state like a calculation completed. You slept for 6 hours, he says. Your vitals dropped. You were close to collapse. Imani pulls the sheets higher, refusing to thank him. Am I a guest or a prisoner? Yes, he replies. She exhales a bitter laugh. Figures. He gestures to the windows. This floor is secure. You will eat when meals arrive. You will work when summoned. You will not leave. And my brother, he is alive, Min Jun says. For now. The words are calm. Controlled. Designed to hurt precisely. Imani swings her legs over the bed and stands. The marble floor is cold, grounding. If I'm rebuilding your system, I need full access. Not filtered feeds. Not your people standing behind me with guns. Min Jun studies her. You already ask like someone who belongs here. I don't, she snaps. And that's the problem. A flicker of something unreadable crosses his face. Interest, perhaps. Or irritation. Access will be granted in stages, he says. Trust is earned. She steps closer, refusing to back down. You stole my life's work. You used it to build an empire, and now you're testing my loyalty. I am testing your limits. Min Jun corrects. There is a difference. The first power game begins that moment. Hours later, she sits in a glass-walled control room overlooking the city. Armed guards line the perimeter. Analysts speak only when spoken to. The silence presses in, thick and watchful. Min Jun stands behind her. Begin, he says. Imani doesn't touch the keyboard immediately. She turns instead. You want obedience. I want transparency. You will not get both. She finally types. The system unfolds under her hands like a familiar language she never forgot. Layers she once dreamed of perfecting are now warped by greed and shortcuts. She fixes without mercy. Rewrites without apology. When a guard questions her access level, she locks him out of his own console. Min Jun watches. You enjoy provoking them. He observes. They mistake fear for authority. She replies. That gets people killed. And yet fear built this empire. Then it deserves to be rebuilt better. Their eyes meet. The air tightens. He steps closer, close enough that she can feel his presence at her back. Not touching. Never touching. The restraint is deliberate. You are not afraid of me, he says quietly. I'm afraid of what you represent, Imani answers. There's a difference. Another pause. Another calculation. Later, during a forced meal in a silent dining hall, he tests her again. You could leave, he says casually, as if discussing the weather. Disappear. I would find you within hours. She sets her fork down. Then why offer? To see if you consider it. And if I did. He meets her gaze evenly. I would admire your honesty. That scares her more than a threat. The days blur into controlled proximity. Work. Surveillance. Power exchanged in glances and silence. Min Jun never raises his voice. Never touches her. But he watches. How she moves, how she thinks, how she refuses to shrink. The attraction creeps in anyway. Not soft, not safe, sharp, dangerous. One night, she uncovers it. A hidden protocol buried beneath layers she never authorized. A ghost command tied directly to her original credentials. Her breath catches as she runs it. The system responds instantly. Puramar skan farmi. Her hands tremble. She digs deeper. What she finds stops her heart. A private archive. Dated years ago. Before the empire reached its height. Before the professor sold her work. Before she was erased. A single file opens. Imani Carter Original Art. Her name, saved, preserved, protected. Her chest tightens. Someone knew. Someone had always known. Footsteps sound behind her. She turns slowly. Min Jun stands there, unreadable as ever. How long? She asks, voice barely steady. How long have you known my name? He doesn't deny it. Since the beginning, he says. The truth lands heavier than betrayal. You watched them erase me, Imani says. And you said nothing. I watched a system built on theft. Min Jun replies. And I waited for its creator to return. She laughs, hollow. So this was fate to you. A strategy. To me. He says softly. It was inevitability. Her hands curl into fists. You let me suffer. And you survived. He counters. Stronger than they expected. The words are not comfort. They are possession disguised as admiration. Imani steps back, heart racing. She finally understands the depth of the cage she is in. He didn't just recognize her power that night. He had been waiting for her. And now that she is here, Min Jun has no intention of letting her go. The truth does not arrive gently. It slams into Imani like a locked door thrown open without warning. She finds it buried where it was never meant to be uncovered. Inside a financial shell nested beneath Min Jun's private accounts. At first, it looks like nothing. Old transfers, university grants, research endowments disguised as philanthropy. Then she sees the name. Her professors. Her fingers go cold. She pulls the thread slowly, methodically, the way she was trained to. One transaction becomes 10. 10 become hundreds. Clean money flowing into dirty ambition. Her breath shortens as timelines align. Her final year, the sudden praise. The promises of publication, the closed-door meetings she was never invited to attend. Min Jun didn't just benefit from her stolen work. He paid for it. Memory crashes over her in violent flashes. A chalkboard filled with her equations. Her professor smiling too widely. You're brilliant, Imani. But you don't understand how this world works. The rejection letters. The silence. The lawsuit she couldn't afford to fight. Watching her own architecture appear in journals with someone else's name attached. Then vanish behind corporate walls. She grips the edge of the console as the present snaps back into focus. Min Jun's empire. built on her bones. Her vision blurs, but she forces herself to keep digging. She needs to know how deep the rot goes. She finds the first deployment of her code, years ago, embedded in a smaller operation. A test run, successful, profitable, then scaled, expanded, weaponized. Every rise in Min Jun's power coincides with her erasure. The door behind her opens. She doesn't turn. You funded him, Imani says, her voice frighteningly steady. You paid the man who stole my work. Silence stretches. Then Min Jun speaks. I invested in potential. She spins around. You invested in theft. She snaps. In destroying my life. His expression does not change, but something tightens behind his eyes. I invested in a system that worked. I was the system. She shouts. The room echoes with it, raw and unrestrained. I was the mind you erased. He steps closer. Not threatening, never frantic. That makes it worse. You were erased by institutions that do not reward purity, he says calmly. I did not create that injustice. I used it. Her hands shake. Anger burns through her grief, sharp and clarifying. You watched me disappear. Imani says. You watched my name vanish. And you built an empire on the silence. Yes. Min Jun replies. And now you are here. The words are meant to reassure. They feel like chains. You think this is redemption? She asks bitterly. Keeping me in a cage and calling it recognition. He studies her for a long moment. You are safer here than you ever were out there. I didn't ask for safety, she says. I asked for my life. She turns away from him, hands flying across the console. Not to fix, not to stabilize, to leave. What are you doing? Min Jun asks, walking away. You cannot, he says, sharper now. The system will fail. She finishes. I know. She disconnects her credentials. One by one. Root access revoked. Creator permissions withdrawn. The room seems to exhale in alarm as warning lights flicker. You will kill thousands of livelihoods, he says. You already did, she replies. Min Jun reaches for her wrist and stops himself inches away. The restraint is deliberate. Calculated. If you leave, he says quietly, there will be consequences. She finally looks at him again. Really looks, for the first time. Imani says, voice trembling but unbroken, I choose myself. She walks past him. The hallway feels endless. Too quiet, too clean. Her chest aches as grief finally catches up with rage. Tears spill, uninvited and hot, but she doesn't wipe them away. She lets them fall onto marble floors built with stolen brilliance. At the elevator, she hesitates only once. Not for him. For the version of herself who believed survival was the same as freedom. The doors close. Back in the command center, the effects are immediate. Systems lag, latency spikes, security protocols misfire. Analysts scramble. She pulled creator access. Stability dropping. Min Jun stands alone, watching the screens. For the first time since the night of the crash, something like uncertainty creeps into his posture. Find her, he orders. But even as his men move, the Empire begins to tremble. The Red Death stirs again. Not because it was reactivated, but because the only person who could hold it at bay has chosen dignity over control. Assets freeze. A rival syndicate tests the borders. Investors panic. Min Jun's phone vibrates with warnings he has never seen before. Outside, rain continues to fall over Seattle. Imani steps out into it, breath hitching, heart breaking and mending all at once. She has no protection. No leverage. No guarantee her brother will survive. But she has herself. And behind her, unseen but undeniable, the empire she built, and broke, begins to collapse again without her. The Empire does not forgive absence. Within hours of Imani's departure, Min Jun's world fractures along the seams she once held together. Systems lag beyond recovery. Accounts freeze. Old allies grow bold. Enemies circle with sharpened smiles. For the first time, Min Jun does not issue orders to contain the damage. He issues them to destroy the rot. Bring me the professor, he says. The man arrives shaking, dragged into a private boardroom that overlooks the city he helped poison. Min Jun listens as the excuses spill. Contracts approvals, plausible deniability. When the man finishes, Min Jun slides a folder across the table. Inside are records of theft, bribery, falsified research, and the original documentation naming Imani Carter as sole architect. You erased her, Min Jun says calmly. Now you will restore her. The professor never leaves the room with his reputation intact. By morning, universities receive anonymous packets. Journals retract publications. Awards are rescinded. Lawsuits erupt like controlled detonations. The academic world that buried Imani fractures under the weight of truth. Min Jun does not stop there. He turns inward. Every executive who touched the stolen code is removed. Shell companies are dissolved. Accounts seized. Men who believed themselves untouchable are handed to authorities in carefully timed leaks. Each move weakens him, but strengthens something else: conscience. When his lieutenant hesitates, Min Jun silences him with a look. If this empire survives, he says, it will no longer feed on stolen mines. The most dangerous step comes last. Imani's brother. Min Jun walks into the courthouse himself, cameras already gathering as if summoned by fate. He does not hide his face. He does not send lawyers. He submits evidence. Fabricated charges collapse under forensic scrutiny. Witnesses recant. Surveillance footage appears where none existed before. A judge orders immediate release. When Imani's brother steps into daylight, blinking and stunned, the world watches. And then the feeds explode. Documents leak. Names surface. Min Jun's signature appears on financial trails he never bothered to erase. Because he knows what comes next. The underworld reels. So does the law. That night, at a public press conference meant to destroy him, Min Jun does something no one expects. Imani is there. She stands at the back of the crowd, hood pulled low, heart hammering as she watches the man who once caged her step to the podium. He does not deny the accusations. I built power on theft, Min Jun says into 100 microphones. I believed control was protection. I was wrong. Gasps ripple. He turns, not to the cameras, but to her. I took what did not belong to me, he continues, and when its creator returned, I tried to own her instead of freeing her. Imani's breath catches. In front of rivals, authorities, and the world, Min Jun steps down from the stage and kneels. The city freezes. This is not a plea for forgiveness, he says, voice steady even on his knees. It is a release. He reaches into his jacket and places a drive on the ground between them. Full access, full ownership. Every system, every safeguard, they are yours, or none of them are. Cameras flash like lightning. I will face what comes next, Min Jun says. But she will walk free. Silence stretches, heavy and unreal. Imani steps forward slowly. She does not touch him. She looks down at the man who once believed power meant possession. You don't get to save me, she says quietly. You only get to stop hurting me. He nods once. Acceptance without condition. She picks up the drive. I choose, Imani says, loud enough for the world to hear, to return. Not as property. Not as leverage. She meets Min Jun's eyes. But as a partner. On my terms. Relief flickers across his face. Not triumph. Not ownership gratitude. Authorities move in. Hands grip Min Jun's arms. He does not resist. As he is led away, his gaze never leaves Imani. The empire will survive or fall without him. That is no longer the point. Days later, Imani walks back into the command floor. Not as a prisoner, but as its architect. Contracts rewritten. Power redistributed. Transparency enforced. Min Jun's chair remains empty. She does not fill it. She builds something new instead. And for the first time since her name was stolen, Imani Carter stands in a world that finally knows who she is. Because love, she has learned, is not proven by control, but by the courage to let go. Rain still falls over Seattle, but it no longer sounds like war. It taps gently against the windows of a modest glass house tucked away from the skyline, where the city's noise fades into distance and choice finally feels real. Inside, warm light spills across hardwood floors. Laughter rises from the kitchen, soft and surprised, like it still hasn't learned it's allowed to exist. Imani stands barefoot at the counter, sleeves rolled up, hair loosely tied back. She is not hiding anymore, not shrinking. A tablet rests beside her, not monitored, not stolen, not feared. Her name is printed clearly on every system she designs now. Ownership reclaimed. Identity restored. From the living room, Min Jun watches her with a quiet that no longer feels dangerous. He is not dressed in power. No guards. No sharp edges. Just a man learning how to exist without armor. The world still knows his name, but it no longer defines him. Consequences came. He faced them. Some scars never fade. But neither does accountability. When Imani's brother bursts through the door, dripping rainwater and complaining loudly, Min Jun smiles without thinking. Imani throws a towel at him, laughing, and the sound fills the house with something richer than control. Belonging. Later, they sit together on the couch as rain streaks the glass. No grand speeches. No promises carved in fear. Just presence. Just earned trust. You stayed, Min Jun says quietly. Not as a claim, but as gratitude. I chose. Imani corrects gently. He nods, accepting the difference. Their hands rest close, not entwined by force, but by decision. Power no longer leans in one direction. Loyalty is not demanded. It is offered. Freely, daily, without fear. Outside, the city moves on. Inside, something rare has been built. Not an empire. A home. And if love survives here, it is not because it conquered, but because it learned how to kneel, how to listen, and how to let go. Because the strongest bonds are not forged through ownership, but through freedom, respected and returned. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Love and Loyalties and comment which couple you want next.